Lamar Jackson's playing at a high level, 5 touchdown passes against the Giants, 2 of which went to Rashod Bateman. No Deontay Johnson, not that he was a factor anyway, but now that potential speed bump has been removed from the equation.
Yeah, not the easiest matchups the next 2 weeks against the Steelers and Texans. Didn't have much of a productive day against the Steelers a couple of weeks ago, but he's been getting it done here. He's been, looking through the touchdowns on the Ravens here. He's right there with Mark Andrews at the top. Zay Flowers hasn't been disappointing, but he's just been, 10, 11 fantasy points for about 4 or 5 weeks in a row here, and it's because Rashod Bateman and Mark Andrews are stealing these touchdowns from him. So Bateman, it's risky playing him, but we're at the time of year where you might be going up against an opponent that has Jamar Chase and a stud running back, and you might be a severe underdog, and you might need to play somebody with a little more upside. And Rashod Bateman, he could get you, a 2 for 28 very easily, but he's also capable of what we saw yesterday with the 2 touchdowns, and can really, get those ceiling performances if that's what you're looking for right now.
What? Why are you shaking your head? You're welcome.
Yes, I understand that views on this video will go down, Tom Brawley, as the weeks wax and wane. It's week 16 of the NFL season. Week 15, well, it just wrapped up for you watching on Monday night. We are recording this before the 2 Monday night games, so something could change. But nonetheless, you and I are going to be breaking down the week 16 waiver wire. Tom, I got Josh Allen. I got Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't, what else? What are you going to do?
I got Devontae Adams in a couple leagues. And my Steelers,
and that's one you probably weren't all that scared about going up against. It was a good matchup for Adams, but such is life, right?
My Steelers got eagled yesterday as well. That's why I'm wearing my green here today for the.
They got that final drive was let's call that a Richard in the soil drive that the Eagles had on the final 21 plays. That was if you like football, and you have to say it like John Madden, football. That's real football. My dad, I'm sure, is smiling down, having watched that drive against a team that is known for making those drives. Anyway, that is a discussion for a different day, Tom, because I don't think there's a whole lot to talk about from the waiver wire perspective in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. But let's get to Pittsburgh's division rival, the Cleveland Browns, who unfortunately lost Nick Chubb for the season to a broken foot. And, he wasn't himself anyway, coming off of that devastating knee injury. He's going into free agency. At this point, if he wants to continue playing, he's probably going to have to settle for like a J.K. Dobbins kind of contract, maybe a situation like that. But he's going to miss the rest of the season with a broken foot. And Jerome Ford busted off a long touchdown run in his absence. He's available in about 60% of Yahoo leagues, so some of your more competitive leagues, the Chubb owner might have been already handcuffing Nick Chubb with Jerome Ford, but he is available and a potential RB2 here for the next 2 weeks of the fantasy playoffs.
Yeah, and this is a situation we've got to monitor the quarterback situation here. We want Jameis Winston to keep playing. There's more fantasy production to go around in this offense as opposed to Dorian Thompson-Robinson, but that's a situation we'll be watching as the week goes along here. But I would expect Jerome Ford to handle most of the work here going forward. Pierre Strong is also in the mix, but we already have a pretty good sample from earlier this season whenever Ford was the guy. First 5 games of the season when he was healthy, averaging 50 rushing yards per game, 17 receiving yards per game, and 4 receptions as well. So it wasn't exceptional, but that was also when Deshaun Watson was at quarterback and this offense couldn't move the ball. So I would think that he takes on a pretty heavy workload here for the rest of the season. And the matchups are pretty good. Cincinnati and Miami as well. That Cincinnati game, maybe we could get a little bit of points going in that one. Cincinnati always seems to do that. So Ford is out there, available, and he's going to handle most of this work here. We just want Jameis Winston at quarterback, though.
T-Bro, Kendre Miller. He's the next man up in this backfield for New Orleans. Alvin Kamara. I've got to read you the comment here.
Oh gosh.
From because I love this. The comment from Darren Rizzi about Alvin Kamara's injury. Alvin Kamara is dealing with, quote, a groin abductor type of situation. I see he has met my ex-wife. You do not know. You never want your groin abducted. It doesn't sound all that good. The Saints, of course, obviously are out of it, so they could take their time with Alvin Kamara. But if he misses time, Kendre Miller, Tom, he's available in roughly 90% of Yahoo leagues, will be on the RB2 radar for the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, we've talked about this a little bit in recent weeks. Miller's role was growing here, and Rizzi is much more open to playing him compared to Dennis Allen earlier in the year.
Dennis Allen
hated his guts. Hated him. So Miller was a little bit more of a factor here anyway. And as you said, Joe, they don't have a whole lot to play for here down the stretch. Miller's a second-year player. Maybe want to get a little bit more of an evaluation anyway. Looking at Alvin Kamara's numbers, he's third in touches already, behind only Saquon Barkley and Kyren Williams. And he's already set a new career high. So they just signed into an extension in the middle of the season here. So I could see them saying, at the very least, let's make this a 50-50 split. And at best case scenario, let's shut him down here for a couple of games. Season's over here. Let's get a good evaluation of Kendre Miller as the lead back here for the Saints. So I wish the matchup was a little bit better this week against the Packers. It's not ideal, but he does have a matchup against the Raiders in the fantasy championship week, and we love that matchup. So at the very least, Miller is worth picking up, stashing, as we see what happens here with Alvin Kamara the next couple of weeks.
There was obviously one really huge injury, Tom, at the running back position. And another huge one, and this one really significant, not just for fantasy, but for the NFL in general, and that's David Montgomery. He goes down with a torn MCL. He will miss the rest of the regular season and the playoffs for the Detroit Lions. And I don't know if there's going to be anything fantasy relevant to come out of this. I think the general assumption is that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to handle a bigger workload, but that Sonic and Knuckles, could there be a Sonic and Tails situation here is what I want to know. Could Kutztown's finest, Craig Reynolds, carve out a role in this backfield? The last time Craig Reynolds had 10 carries in an NFL game came in week 8 last year. He had 14 carries for 74 yards against the Raiders in a game that David Montgomery missed. This was in 2023, week 8 of 2023. Can he be the tails to Jahmyr Gibbs' Sonic, or is this just a really deep league, I'm dying, I need somebody type of situation?
Yeah, that's how I'm approaching it. There's no way I'd feel confident playing him this week against the Bears, but we'll see if he does have a little bit bigger role than we're expecting. But I think Gibbs takes over most of it here, probably is around 70 to 80% of the snaps, and the rest going to Craig Reynolds. But as we've seen with this offense the last couple of weeks, they're going to put up a lot of points no matter what, and their defense is playing so poorly that it's lending itself to more scoring opportunities and more offensive opportunities. So if you're real desperate on the low end, maybe you take a look at Craig Reynolds, but I'll probably be looking at other spots on the running back waiver wire this week.
Tom, we have a lot more running backs covered in the waiver wire article at FantasyPoints.com. By the way, by the time you listen to this and you see this video, our 2025 early bird special will be live. The cheapest full season package you can get at Fantasy Points. It will cover you for the rest of 2024 and the entire 2025 NFL season, which is really as good a deal as you're going to get. It's the lowest we're going to offer for a full season at FantasyPoints.com. So make sure you get on that. You get more content for less money. I don't know why you don't do that.
We're going to be working throughout the playoffs as well. You're going to be watching these postseason games, want a little bit of something to bet on or play a little DFS because your regular season's ending in week 17. It's a great opportunity to get some content for the next couple of months before you even get the 2025 content at a 20% discount. So it's
no
worth
catches, by the way.
Yeah.
Like you get all of 2025 season, like with the early bird special. It is the best deal in the fantasy industry. All right, Tom, taking my salesman hat off, and I'm going buying for some wide receivers. And if I'm looking at the waiver wire, there is one guy who's standing head and shoulders above the rest here. If I need somebody for the next 2 weeks in fantasy, it's Jalen McMillan of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield, it is the next man up mentality for this guy. He keeps throwing the football to his guys, no matter who's hurt, who's available. Mike Evans is back. We know that. He's the one. Nobody's arguing that. But Jalen McMillan, maybe a struggle here and there early part of the season. He is back and he is ready to go. And he is developing into a nice option for Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, we pumped him up a couple of months ago after the Chris Godwin injury. And Mike Evans also went down, in that Baltimore game on Monday Night Football. And we were anticipating him having a bigger role, and it never really came together for him. He, was still pretty raw, and then he picked up an injury. So he was kind of forgotten about. He was widely picked up in a lot of fantasy leagues. Now he's been dropped everywhere. 8% owned, but it's looking like he's starting to put it together a little bit here. He's the number 2 wide receiver behind Mike Evans. As you said, Baker Mayfield is playing at a really high level. We even saw last week they did some little design targets for him to get him going in the screen game, which sprung him for a touchdown. So they're starting to put a little bit more on his plate here. Cade Otton was kind of the guy who stepped up as the number 1 receiver after Mike Evans and Godwin went down. His role has been reduced here. So maybe McMillan can carve out this little spot here as the number 2 wide receiver. And the matchups look pretty good as well here. The Cowboys secondary is weakened here with Diggs going out. And then they get the Carolina Panthers in week 17, which isn't scary at all. So looking like Jalen McMillan was a little bit, we see these rookies start to come together, break out a little bit later in the season. And maybe it's starting to happen here. They had pretty high hopes for him. I can remember tracking, training camp news, and he was really distanced himself as the number 3 wide receiver ahead of a lot of the veterans in the group, and just didn't come together early in the season, but maybe it's starting to here in the fantasy playoffs.
Well, let's get to Carolina, Tom, where Bryce Young, I think you would say, took a little bit of a step back. He didn't look... I just don't think he played a good game. He didn't look like the deer in headlights that he was in the first 2 weeks. He just didn't play a good game. He had 4 turnovers against the Cowboys, and maybe part of the reason, Xavier Legette, his talented young rookie first-round pick receiver, he goes down, looks like a groin injury, and he's expected to miss some time. But Jalen Coker returned to the lineup, had an 80-plus yard touchdown on a great throw from Bryce Young. He's available in virtually every Yahoo league.
Yeah, that was the best play of the game for the Panthers, and Coker was a guy, even before we got to see Bryce Young start to play better after their bye. Coker was starting to merge a little bit when Thielen was out of the lineup, but then he missed the 3 games after the bye, right when Bryce Young started to play well. Last week was the first taste that we've really had them together since Young took a couple of steps forward here, even though he played poorly yesterday. So Legette's going to be out of the mix potentially for at least this week, and it sounds like one of those situations that he could easily be shut down for the rest of the year if he's not close to 100%. This is another team that is, not really playing for much at the end of the season here. So Coker has been impressive. Undrafted guy out of Holy Cross, has hit 36 receiving yards, pretty low threshold here, but he's done that in 4 straight games. So liking Coker, this is a guy that's widely available too, only 2% owned. So in the matchups, Arizona's all right this week, but that Tampa Bay matchup in week 17 is what we're eyeing here. So maybe you might want to stash him here. If he puts together another good performance here against the Cardinals, maybe you have a little bit of confidence to play him in that great matchup for fantasy wide receivers against the Buccaneers week 17.
Well, one more guy I want to cover at the wide receiver position, Tom, simply because it looks like the Ravens have had it with Deontay Johnson. I don't know what the heck the situation is going on there. Maybe you'll know more by the time you watch this than we do. But Rashod Bateman's available in 75% of leagues. Lamar Jackson's playing at an MVP level. He's not going to win the MVP because voter fatigue and because Josh Allen has been Superman this year. But Lamar Jackson's playing at a high level, 5 touchdown passes against the Giants, 2 of which went to Rashod Bateman. No Deontay Johnson, not that he was a factor anyway, but now that potential speed bump has been removed from the equation.
Yeah, not the easiest matchups the next 2 weeks against the Steelers and Texans. Didn't have much of a productive day against the Steelers a couple of weeks ago, but he's been getting it done here. He's been, looking through the touchdowns on the Ravens here. He's right there with Mark Andrews at the top. Zay Flowers hasn't been disappointing, but he's just been, 10, 11 fantasy points for about 4 or 5 weeks in a row here, and it's because Rashod Bateman and Mark Andrews are stealing these touchdowns from him. So Bateman, it's risky playing him, but we're at the time of year where you might be going up against an opponent that has Jamar Chase and a stud running back, and you might be a severe underdog, and you might need to play somebody with a little more upside. And Rashod Bateman, he could get you, a 2 for 28 very easily, but he's also capable of what we saw yesterday with the 2 touchdowns, and can really, get those ceiling performances if that's what you're looking for right now.
Okay, Tom, let's go now to the tight end position, where there's 2 guys I think we need to mention, and they're both kind of fill-in tight ends in injury situations. I think one kind of stands out above the other, that being Brenton Strange of the Jacksonville Jaguars with Evan Ingram out for the season. Had a strong game against the New York Jets, and the other being Stone Smartt of the Chargers. Stone Cold Smartt, his name. Stone Cold
Smartt.
Stone Cold here. He had a mediocre game for the Chargers, but both of these guys injury fill-ins right now.
Yeah, Strange had a little bit of a chance to be the starter whenever Evan Ingram went out earlier in the season. He missed 4 games in weeks 2 through 5. Of course, that was with Trevor Lawrence at the time. He was knocking on the door of fantasy relevance there. Was averaging 30 receiving yards per game with 2 touchdowns in that 4-game span. But the situation's a little different now. Christian Kirk's out. Gabe Davis is out. Obviously, Evan Ingram's out. So he's the number 2 receiver here in this offense right now. Brian Thomas Jr. is the clear number 1. He's making a real late surge here with Mac Jones at quarterback. But, for these checkdowns and the over-the-middle type of passes here that Brian Thomas is more of the downfield, and they're just looking to get the ball in his hands. But, the second option in this offense right now is Brenton Strange. So if you're playing in, a PPR league, I prefer Strange for that. Guy has a great matchup here too. Has a matchup against the Raiders, who we've been targeting all season long with our tight ends, and then he gets the Titans in 2 weeks. So pretty good matchups overall as well. And Stone Smartt, he's looked athletic. He's kind of looked the part here the last 2 weeks. Got a big role after Will Disley injured his shoulder at the end of the first half in week 14. Went for 54 yards in the second half with them chasing points against the Chiefs. And then put up 5 for 50 this past week. So, Justin Herbert, they've been forced to throw the ball a ton here recently. Gus Edwards and Kimani Vidal are doing nothing in the running game. So they've been pushed a little bit out of their comfort zone. They have to throw it a little bit more. And Lab McConkey is, he's working through multiple injuries here. So, and Quentin Johnson's been up and down, as he was as a rookie. But Stone Smartt here, maybe, if you're in a deeper league here, need to, go a little deeper for some help at the tight end position. Both of these guys are widely available and maybe could help you out here in the final 2 weeks.
That'll do it for this edition of the Waiver Wire Show here at the Fantasy Points YouTube. Remember, check out the early bird special at FantasyPoints.com, even if you are a subscriber, because you are going to get 2025 for the lowest price. You will be able to get it all season. You will be glad you did. That's Tom. I'm Joe. Good luck in week 16, everybody. Have a good one.